Okay, guys, I am working on a commission painting. Sorry I didn't get this started right away, the recording right away when I started the painting, but hey, better late than never. So I'm doing a series of portraits for a family. One of my buddies commissioned me to do, I think, 4 to 6 different paintings, 2 kids, and family, a family portrait, and then the dog, and then 2 more of the kids when they were even smaller, babies, infant babies. And so that's going to be one of my projects for the next week or two, getting those done. Also, um, it's going to be a collage on their wall. So they're going to kind of branch out. And it sounds like he wants to be able to add more paintings over the years as the kids grow on the outside perimeter of the collage and just keep expanding and snowballing that way. So that's going to be pretty cool. And so this is a fresh start of a new commissioned painting. And I just wanted to record the process here for you so you can see how I'm doing this. And so one of the challenges I have when I'm painting, I'm going to get right to it, by the way. One of the challenges I have when I'm painting digitally, which is what I do strictly right now, is painting digitally, is to paint so that you can see brush strokes. When it comes to digital paintings, it's very tempting to smooth everything out and make it look like a photograph. And my job is to make this painting look like a painting with actual paint. And what better way to do that than to use Rebel 7? Or actually, I'm using Rebel 8 Pro by Escape Motions. That's the painting software here. So, it's taken me at least 10 years to figure out how to paint in a way that it looks like a actual traditional painting with actual paint on canvas. And a big part of that is letting people see your brushstrokes and your mistakes. And traditional painting with traditional medium is very much that way anyways. You don't want to get rid of your brushstrokes and smooth everything out. So um, there we go. There's the beginning phases of an eye. And yeah, you want the human touch. You want clues, leave clues behind so people know that you are painting by hand and it's not just an exact replica. So right now I'm matching colors based on what I see in the photograph, but I will start to add cool or warm colors to the skin tone, which may not be exactly what you see in the photograph, the reference photo, but it will add a layer of life and realism and some depth to the painting. I really like Rebel by Escape Motions. It gives me the ability to paint with realistic oil textures on various canvas and paper textures. I'm just using for today's purpose and these paintings. I'm really just using a blank flat sheet of paper. So I'll show you all the different papers here. So I can change the texture of the paper or the canvas. Let's just scroll down and you can see exactly what it does to the painting. And you can see it kind of when I change the texture of the canvas, it hides a lot of the texture and details from the brush strokes, and I really don't want that to happen. So right now this is a gesso rough canvas, and you can see the texture and the bristles of the brush just disappeared. Now if I go straight back to just a simple white canvas, now you can see the texture of the brush. So Escape Motion really spends a lot of time developing these papers and canvas, different canvas types. But what I found is they actually deter from the brush strokes I want people to see. I heavily rely on the brush strokes. It is true. So I wouldn't call it a gimmick. I think there is a place for it, but for my style and my purposes, I probably wouldn't. Excuse me. I wouldn't want to rely on um, such technology all the time to create. excuse me, to create a painting that I think is worthy of hanging on a wall. So one of the things I'm really trying to focus on too, as a painter, over the years, I've learned to paint holistically, not just focusing on one area, trying to bring up parts of the painting together rather than focusing on one spot, because a lot of paintings really rely on trying to figure out the value and contrast of different areas of the painting. And so sometimes you might have to bring up other areas, make them darker, make them brighter, and uh, and if you focus on one area, it's kind of difficult to do that. So, yep. And the eyes are tricky. What I like about eyes is that you think it should be white, but there's no white in this eye. It's actually pretty dark. However, it doesn't mean that I won't bring in any highlights to add life to the eye. You gotta bring some twinkle to the eye. Just like that. It's not perfect yet, but it's a good start. And if we look at the other side here, we got a little shadow. And I'm going to put the reflection. Choose that color. There we go. All right. So the eyebrows, just a hint of eyebrows in there. I'll bring the outline back in there. And because the eyebrows are so delicate, I'm going to make a separate layer for the eyebrows, because I don't want to accidentally paint over the eyebrows. And I don't want it to blend right now into the texture of the skin. So there you go. Now, painting babies is tricky. Children, especially younger children, you don't want too many sharp details, because sharp creases makes the baby look a lot older. You might actually end up looking like an adult, like a miniature adult. And so the idea is to keep things smooth and rounded. And that's tricky. Smooth and rounded. And I'm not liking what this paintbrush is doing right now. There we go. So there's a shadow right where the eyebrow is supposed to be. You can see the skin tone's a little darker there. And so that's what I'm trying to do right now. I can't be perfect all of us right away. I have to build up and refine as I go. So this will be a good start. Okay. One of the things that really enhances a painting are edges and edge control, I like to call it that. Being able to determine what part of the painting you want to have sharp edges or edges that disappear is a skill. And once you understand that, you could start plotting and figuring out where you want that to happen. So for me, I've decided that right in the painting, like if you look at the photograph here, I just put in that dark shadow. That's going to be important because that's going to be a focal point of the painting. The eye is going to be a focal point, but also the hoodie is going to be a focal point right along the edges right here where it meets the face. I want to put some more detail in there with the highlights of the furry hoodie. And so I need to have a little contrast, put some dark shadows right there. So that's part of the plan. You know, painting is so much like sculpting. You're shaping the face, the contours as you go. And the advantage of using a digital painting tool is that you can undo, which I try not to do too often, to be honest with you, because I'm a traditionalist and I feel if you put down paint, you kind of just want to roll with it. Um, and it's that actual imperfection that adds to the character of the painting that makes it look like a human did it, rather than a machine. Like you can tell a lot of times, you can tell when a painting was done by AI because it might look like a human brush touched it and laid down paint, but when you start to see how consistent it is across the board with the brush strokes, that becomes very apparent that hey, this must be AI. Now, if you look at my painting, you can tell there is a lot of imperfections, but it's that imperfection that adds character and beauty to the painting. So that's what it's all about. Paintings are very much a metaphor, in my opinion, to life. Very much a metaphor. It's so funny because I've done a few live paintings before like this on the internet, and I had a comment where someone told me that I'm like the modern day Bob Ross, which I found to be quite entertaining. And compliment. So another thing that I do, you can see here, I paint with the outline on top so I can disappear the outline when I want. It works really well with my workflow. Keeps me in line. Sometimes I don't use an outline, but when I'm doing a portrait like this that's going to hang on someone's wall of their kids, I want it to look like their kids. And so I'm going to use an outline and be pretty tight and strict on the outline. Because the subtle changes in where shadows and highlights can definitely change the character of the portrait. It will change the way that person looks. They'll look like somebody completely different. And so even like just a small angle of the shadow can change an expression, particularly here around the lips and the smile can definitely change things. And so you have to be very careful with those. So there's a crease right here of the smile. And if I had put that just a slight different up or down or change the angle just a little bit, it will totally change the face. And so you gotta choose the spots that you think will make the biggest difference with the least amount of effort. Painting efficiently, but also the human eye, understanding the human eye, like what what information do you need to include in the painting? Is it necessary? Because the brain can figure out the rest. You know, you got to figure out what exactly you need to leave out. Not everything needs to be painted. And that's the fun part. You know, I find that to be a really cool challenge. Is being like, okay, can I leave out this edge, this line? What effect will that have on the viewer? So that's balancing act. So what am I using to paint? I'm using one of these pen stylus thingamabobs. Here we go. The camera is right here. And I'll show you. I'll unplug this. I'm using the Canvas Inspiroy large tablet, pen tablet. I find this to be a lot better for painting, making paintings that look actually like paintings digitally, because first of all, you have to be more loose to paint efficiently on here. If you're trying to paint extremely tight lines and details, your hands start to cramp up because it's really difficult to paint with your hand down on the tablet and have your eyes on the screen. So if you're doing like line work, it's probably not going to be the best tool for you. If you're doing just paintings and you want that brush effect, you want to use one of these because it's going to add some more of those imperfections. Plus, they're so much more affordable. Like pen display, I had a canvas, a Huion Canvas 22 HD display. Also came with a pen like this, and you would draw directly on it. And that one was affordable. It was an entry level, and it was like $450. But you can skyrocket in prices if you want a professional one, like $2,500 by what's the name of the company? Wacom. Those tablets are expensive. But this pen tablet, literally only $70, and I can create professional paintings, portraits, landscapes, you name it. I can do whatever I want on here. And also, the advantage is when I'm painting. So even though when you paint or draw on a pen display directly on the display, it feels natural because the the ink or the paint is directly underneath the pen tip, and so it seems like real life. However, when you're using one of these, the advantage is your hand is never in front of the image. Ergonomically, you're looking directly at the painting. Your hand never covers the image, and so that's an advantage. And I don't think a lot of artists ever think about that or actually experience that. After some several months of painting, you start to pick up, wait a minute, I actually prefer having a much larger image on my screen, my color calibrated monitor, rather than having my hand directly on the screen and spending thousands of dollars, and the image probably will look pretty much the same. Unless you're doing line art, that's different. Anyways, so I would say this painting is not there yet. I'm probably about 65%, if I were to quantify this, there. I need to figure out the background. My customer told me they wanted a white background with a shadow somewhere, and that's going to really enhance the painting. I've got to figure out if I'm going to add warm or cool colors to the face, because right now everything is pretty much warm, but I need to balance it out with some cool colors, make it warmer in certain places, and I need to figure out how to add some texture and where to highlight, and I also need to figure out which edges are going to disappear. So wherever you want the edges to disappear, that's probably not where you want your eyes to focus. So I'll give you an example. So we talked about this earlier. I probably want the edges around the hoodie here that connects to the face to be sharper. I want that to be a harder edge. And then maybe down here at the shoulders, these edges should disappear. Maybe somewhere along the ears should disappear. Top of the ears probably should have a distinct edge. Maybe somewhere down here by the collar and the neck should disappear a little bit. So, and then the eyes. I need to have some sharper edges, highlights around the eyes, because that's where I want you to look. I want the eyes to be pulled in, and so that's where you're going to look. And the mouth, I don't want any sharp edges, not too many sharp edges around the mouth. I want those edges to disappear a little bit softer, because teeth is tricky, especially when you're doing a portrait, drawing, or painting. It could kind of look distorted and strange if you try to bring out every single detail about the teeth. So making sure that that is not the most distinct part of the image is a big part. Now, this is why a lot of artists in the past, it is tradition not to paint a smile with teeth. And it's not because it looked awkward, but it was kind of like a sophisticated way of doing a portrait, more of a solemn look back in the day. And I think over the decades or the centuries, people have shied away from painting smiley teeth, because skill wise, it can look awkward. There's a lot more angles and small details in the teeth that can really throw off a painting. And even if it's just by a tiny smidge, the teeth can look a lot bigger than what you think they should look, or smaller, which if you're painting for someone like a commissioned portrait of their kids and their teeth are off, boy, that's a problem. I remember having that experience a few times, painting a relative, a nephew, and that was quite a learning experience. And so, if you're an artist and you do commission portraits, it's okay to not want to paint teeth. You can request photographs without teeth. You can, you know, try to give them a good example of what would make a great reference photo. Anyways, guys, that is it for me today with this recording. I'm going to go and focus on this by myself because I need to get it done. This is a very important project for me, painting for a friend of mine that I really care about. And he's trusted me with these, and it's going to hang in his house once it's all done. Oh, and by the way, these are going to be printed on fine art archival paper, G clay paper, mounted on birch wood, and which is the way I like to mount my paintings. I don't do it on traditional canvas. Wood, it's sophisticated, it's modern, it's clean, no frames, hang on the wall just like that. All right, and thanks for joining me today, and have a good day.